Indie authors do not get enough attention, and honestly, neither do novellas in general, to be honest. Personally, I absolutely love novellas. There's something really awesome about being able to start and finish a novella in one session. And frankly, I am really excited to eventually write my own novella one day. On this April episode of this monthly indie book review series, yes, I know it is May. I am also going to be doing a May episode, but for this April episode, I'm going to be giving you 3 different novella recommendations. Each of the novellas in this episode actually has a different genre, so there's a fantasy one, a horror one, and of course, a sci-fi one. I believe this is actually the first episode where I'm featuring a horror review, but it won't be the last. I'm definitely considering doing a full episode committed to horror at some point. I know there are some people asking for that. I'm thinking probably do that around October for Halloween, but we'll see what happens. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in and you haven't already, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. Speaking of which, for those of you who don't know me yet, hi, I'm Patrick Nyland. I'm an aspiring sci-fi author. That's enough about me. Let's get talking about these 3 novellas. The first novella I'll be reviewing is Silverweaver by Cameron Montague Taylor. This novella was recommended to me by Dietrich Stogner, who, by the way, always has the best book recommendations. If you don't already, be sure to check him out. I don't know if he's on YouTube, but if he's not on YouTube, he definitely should be. His book will actually be featured on this series at some point, so Dietrich, if you're watching this, be warned. Speaking of recommendations and future episodes, if you have any recommendations for indie books, be sure to let me know in the comments below. Now let's refocus my attention on Silverweaver by Cameron Montague Taylor. This is a fantasy novella, but it also contains romance, so out of the 3 novellas we are going to talk about, if you are a romance fan, this is definitely the one for you. This story follows Anya, who's a ghost hunter and a metal weaver, which gives her the unique ability to control metal, including the iron in people's blood, which is sick, honestly. Anya, despite her clear talents and power, does not seem to be really good at making money at all, so as a result, she tries to convince her younger brother, who's a tour guide in the city, to allow her to come along and summon ghosts for tips. Anya is supposed to be the only ghost hunter on the trip, but because her brother does not trust her at all, she ends up becoming one of 3, including her former lover, Elle. Anya has no idea what to think because she had no idea that Elle was back in town, and things just get messy when the spirit that gets summoned is not as peaceful as they were hoping it would be. This novella is from the Ilya archives, where hopefully Taylor continues to add to this world because I really love the world building in this story. What Silverweaver does so well is it really weaves, no pun intended, the world building and the magic system into the actual story so that it all feels so natural. As a result, there is a great flow to this novella, and on top of that, the characters are also really fleshed out and developed with really complex relationships between each other. If you like stories that are focused on character growth, then this is definitely a novella you will like, and honestly, with how well you get to know some of these characters, it really does not feel like a novella, despite the fact that it is short in nature, because it feels like you just spent so much time with each of these characters. It does that good of a job of really building them up and also showing change as the story goes on for multiple characters, which was really impressive to me. There are also messages of self-confidence and dealing with the expectations that other people set on you that really sat with me after I was done reading this story. I will say, while the action scenes were okay, I felt like they didn't really stand out. In addition, I would have really liked to know more about this magic system and more about the magic in this universe as a whole. However, I feel like we will get more of that with the rest of the Ilya archives. With all that considered, my final score for Silverweaver is 8.1, and considering the scoring system of this series, that is a really great score. For those of you who are new to this series, this is meant to be a really tough rating system, so 8.1 is a really good score. Again, I would give all 3 of the novellas I read for this episode 5 stars on the Kindle store or Goodreads. I just think it's more helpful to kind of give a stricter score for these videos. Believe me, at this point I've read quite a few books that did not make the cut for this series. Now, let's talk about Blood in the Snow by Luke Geldmacher. This novella was recommended to me by TM Baylor. She's awesome. Be sure to check out her channel. As you can probably tell by the title, Blood on the Snow by Luke Geldmacher is the horror entry of this episode. And let me just say, for a horror story, this was definitely a fun read. Now, the concept for this one is quite simple, but it works so well. A group of hunters is in Alaska illegally hunting for a polar bear, which sounds like a terrible idea, but it gets worse. These 5 hunters do not treat the wild with respect at all, and as a result, they attract a mythical predator who hunts them. The pace of this story is fast, and the details are beautifully gory. If you don't like blood and guts, then you should probably just skip this one. In this story, we get several point of views, including the point of view of the monster, which I absolutely loved. And although the characters in this story are simple, they play their roles well. I've never had the desire to go hunting, especially not in the cold, and this story did not change my mind at all. Still, it was really exciting from start to finish, and the ending was really well landed. I'm giving it an 8.5, and honestly, I almost gave it a higher score, which would have been the highest score in this series. However, there were some repetitive lines here and there that kind of lowered it, in my opinion, but still, this was an incredible read. For now, that top score still belongs to J.B. Ryder's The Forgotten Colony. And speaking of The Forgotten Colony, let's talk about Sci-Fi. The Stellar Snow Job by Marie Howalt is the final novella we'll be talking about in this episode. One of you recommended it to me, and thank you. I'm so sorry I could not find the comment to give you credit. Anyway, I think it's pretty well known at this point that while I do like to read several different genres, my favorite genre to read is sci-fi, and this novella did not disappoint. The Stellar Snow Job takes place in a vast sci-fi universe, and where this story shines is when it's building that universe up. The world building in this novella is genuinely incredible, and what really makes it feel so seamless with the book is Alana, one of the main characters, is a travel writer, so she is writing travel guides about the galaxy. Guides that you do get to read between chapters, which is a really nice addition to the story that I really enjoyed. The story kicks off when she accepts a job to go to a planet and write a guide, and that planet is not quite approved for humans to travel to yet. Meanwhile, the other main characters, Richie and Eddie, finally find work on a top secret mission involving humans that are in a certain section of the galaxy where they shouldn't be. Richard's private investigator business is called Colibri Investigations, and that's where the series gets its title. And I will say, this book does kind of feel like a pilot episode. Oh, well, this novella feels like a pilot episode. Again, where this story shines is its world building, which is extremely extensive, especially for a novella, and it also feels natural and fun. From the first few chapters, I was ready to give this novella an incredibly high rating. It was so exciting and interesting to read. Although, as I hinted before, it did kind of feel like at points it was more focused on setting up a future for the series rather than really focusing on the main focus of this story alone. And it's not that this novella didn't stand on its own, it just felt like the resolution to some of the problems felt a little bit easy. Still, this novella accomplishes a ton in a short period of time, and since it is a novella and not a book, I am able to forgive it for the pilot nature of it because it is a novella in a series of novellas. And I feel like this did a good job of both telling a story while also getting me hooked into the future of this universe. As a result, I'm giving it a 7.9, and I'm definitely going to check out what's next in the Colibri Investigations. It had a really strong balance between seriousness and fun, which is really hard to find in sci-fi, and I greatly appreciate it. Those are my indie reviews for April and May. All these novellas are linked in the description below. For those of you who do use Kindle Unlimited, Blood on the Snow and The Stellar Snow Job are on Kindle Unlimited. Finally, if you know anybody who'd be interested in these indie reviews, be sure to send them this video. I don't ask you to do that with my other series, but when it comes to getting more eyes on indie works, it can be difficult, and it really helps out when you like, share, and send this to other people. The ultimate goal is to highlight indie authors and their work, and every view helps. Remind us to leave your indie recommendations in the comments, and also let me know which of these 3 novellas you're most likely to check out. That's going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.